Okay, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Apologize for the, well, I can't really apologize for the rain. You're all in Syracuse and you should know better if you're concerned about the rain. This is the last in a very successful series of lectures we've had this semester, sharing the work of the peer-to-peer project and the development of inclusive youth. So we are a local bunch today. Everyone you'll be hearing speaking is either a staff member or ally of the peer-to-peer project here at Syracuse University. But I will ask one of our future peer trainers who is going to start working for us in the fall to go ahead and give the introductions, and then we will get started. So, Ashley. We're going to just start here with my name is Ashley, and then go ahead on to introduce people, okay? Okay, my name is Ashley. This is for the semester, okay? Go ahead and just introduce yourself first. So you have to speak right into the microphone.
Hi, my name is Ashley Irvin, and this is my fourth year semester as a part of peer-to-peer program here at SU University. I would like to introduce our presenter, Wendy Harper, director as the Taishoff Center, Bud director of Inclusive Youth, Dee.
It's okay, nobody knows how to pronounce it. Coordinator
of the peer-to-peer program. Sam Bruce, director of the Access program. Jeannie Johnson, teacher assistant from the on-campus program. Eddie Zarumba and Rachel Zuko Bugari, who will be speaking about iPads technology, and the peer trainer Jordan Bloodman, Mecca Philman, and Jasmine.
Good. And first we'll hear from Dr. Harper.
Hi, I'm Wendy Harper. I'm director of the Taishoff Center. Thank you all for coming in the morning. So, how do I forward this up?
Oh. Like that.
There it goes. Oh, yeah, that's me. Okay. All right, so I have a slide, but what I'd rather do is tell you a story. So, when I got here, I was a new faculty member here, new professor, and they had just set up the Taishoff Center, and nobody was sure what we were doing. And I ended up looking around, and I met with Yusuf, who runs on-campus program. I met with Bud, who was running Access at that time. Now it's Sam. And met some of the students, and I noticed that none of the students in Access and on campus seemed to have technology, like phones, or at that point iPads didn't exist, but laptops or other technology that all the undergrads I knew had. So I was thinking a lot about that. And then we all wanted to have Access and on campus and Taishoff Center work together on something. We all wanted to do something together. And then the second piece that happened was I went to a big lunch thing for new faculty, and I met Nancy Cantor, who was the chancellor here. And I don't know how many of you know this about her, but she has a son who's autistic. And she told me he didn't have a really great experience at SU because he didn't really get a chance to meet many of the undergrads who were traditionally enrolled. So I was kind of thinking about these things, and talking to people here, we came up with the idea of peer-to-peer. And peer-to-peer was going to basically bring together all the students, like I see in the room today, and bring together all the programs so all the staff would talk to each other. And we agreed we would give out, well, at that time it was cell phones to all the students in the on-campus and access programs. But then iPads came out, and that was much more fun, so we ended up giving out free iPads. So the idea was we would kind of solve all the problems with one grant. So that's how peer-to-peer came about. We applied for a grant from the Department of Education to make it all happen, and here we are 3 years later, and no one can really imagine not having peer-to-peer. So we've decided to make it a permanent program. So even though the grant ends in September, peer-to-peer will keep going. So it's very exciting. There are not a lot of grant projects that keep going after the grant ends. So that's a really big deal. And part of that's because of the support of everybody in this room that made it happen. But I thought you'd want to at least know before we started today how peer-to-peer came about, what we did. Did I miss anything? Nope, I think that's it. So anyway, now I turn it over to, oh, I have a couple more minutes? Okay, let me talk about one more thing then. The other thing that really troubled me when I came here is that there weren't really, it seemed like it was an inclusive program, both access and on campus, but I didn't see anybody leaving the program and feeling like they had any friends who were traditionally enrolled SU students. So the other piece with this was setting up a peer network, so it wasn't about fake friendships, but it wasn't about just trying to meet people in class if you got lucky, and were able to do that. It was about actually deliberately making the experience more inclusive for everybody. So that's the other big piece. So peer-to-peer has two parts. One is the iPads, and one is this new network that we've established thanks to Dee, of peer partners where the relationships go two ways. It's not just one way. And somebody yesterday just asked me, how is it different than peer mentoring, or how is it different than best buddies? And I said, well, first of all, it's on a college campus. We treat every student here like a college student. That means you get to do what you want. So I made sure there were no rules about how you use your iPads, right? It's up to you. So if you want to use them for games and movies, that's okay. And if you want to use them for class, that's okay. If you want to get on Facebook to talk to your friends, that's okay too. It's up to you how you use it, because everybody else gets to decide that. And then the other piece is just the peer network, the inclusion thing. And I have to say, I'm really proud to see that it worked. We have real friendships with people coming back. I mean, I see the students now and on campus and access look more like regular college students, and we laugh because professors can't figure out who's the on-campus or access student and who's the traditionally enrolled students, and that's the way it should be. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to to someone. Here we go, Jean Johnson Brown. I'm not sure of the order, so I don't know who's next.
Will I be using this?
Just slide it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Jeannie, and I'm with the I'm Jeannie. I thought I had a loud enough voice you could hear me, but anyhow, I'm with the on-campus program. We're the trailblazers to all of this. We were the ones up here, and Yusuf did a slideshow because he wasn't able to attend today. But basically, we started about in 2000, and we're an inclusive post-secondary transition program for students with developmental and intellectual disabilities for the Syracuse School District in collaboration with Syracuse University.
There you go.
Okay.
You went too far.
Oh,
Go back, go back. Again. Other way. There you go.
we didn't get an iPad, so. The on-campus program has students who usually begin up here around the age of 18, 19, but we have had some students that came a little bit earlier. They're from one of the Syracuse City's high schools. There's 5 of them. Typically, they spend 2 to 3 years here, and they complete the program in the year they turn 21. They work on their academic, social, and personal development. They usually audit 2 courses of interest each semester. They have their work modified and there is alternative assessment as needed. Currently, there's 7 students in the on-campus program, and each is supported by a teaching assistant. Some of us teaching assistants have 2 students. Okay, this is on campus then and on campus now. Initially, when the program first started, there was probably only 2 to 3 classes for our students to pick through. Their day was similar to a high school day. The student was fit into a class as opposed to them taking an interest in the class. Peers were not always vested in the relationship. And their days were, he has from 7:30 to 2, but I can recall when they were from 8 to 4. Now we have a variety of classes. Typically SU day is, it's a typical day as SU students. The classes are modified to fit the students, and they have peer friends, much more vested and engaged. And the days can be 7 days a week, late afternoons, evening, weekends, and off campus. We have a lot of our peers that hang out with our friends anytime they want to after school. Okay, the results. Before coming to the on-campus program, some students may have been labeled as incapable, or perhaps they and the people in their lives had low expectations for them. After the on-campus experience, many students are making it by continuing their educations, holding down jobs, and having much better social interactions and relationships. Hope for inclusive youth. Continued normalcy for students with access to all academic, personal, and social opportunities as anyone else. Full and smooth access to any and all services activities from Blackboard to Mayfest. More peer support and relationships, and increase the number of students having this great experience.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, and I will be giving you Sam.
Okay.
Howdy.
Oh, hi Sam.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. Good.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Samuel Rue. Wow. Okay. I've never really used a microphone before. I like it. I like the feeling. Okay. I am the Access Coordinator for the Access program. And before I go in to talk about the relationship between the Access program and peer-to-peer, I'd like to briefly talk about the Access program itself. It was a partnership. It started out with Onondaga Community Living, a not-for-profit organization who provided various supports for students with disabilities, or people with disabilities rather, whether it be at home, in the community, what have you. And people who were being supported by this agency, Onondaga Community Living, decided they wanted something more. They wanted a way to get their students, or to get their sons, to get themselves into college. So they approached Syracuse University, and they approached the University College, which is for part-time SU students, and a coalition, a partnership between all of them came about, and that's where we are today with Access. And really, it became an opportunity for people with disabilities to come to school, and it was for everyone to learn, not just for people with disabilities, but peer-to-peer came in, and it provided a gap, or it bridged rather, a gap between those with disabilities and those who are traditionally enrolled. I think I swiped the right way. Heyo.
Yeah.
It is a way to unite. It was a way to unite the campus. Like I said, it linked traditionally enrolled and non-traditionally enrolled students together, and it did so in an interesting fashion that may not have been seen on most campuses throughout the nation. It was a way without restrictions. Students and their peers met together and they forged their own activities. They forged their own goals as to what they would do throughout the day. It wasn't someone over their shoulder saying, go here and do this. It was completely independent what these two people who were together wanted to do. And finally, talk briefly about the technology aspect of this. The fact that the iPads were put into play was huge way to link peers and to link the students in the Access program. And they were utilized in a variety of ways. not only was technology a big way for these two people to interact, whether it be setting up their appointments whether it be setting up their appointments when they were going to meet through their technological means, or whether it was just a leisure tool. We had students who were, I have a student right now who's a big horror movie fan, and he's got all these various games on his iPad right now where he can sort of move through a haunted house and try to gather clues to solve a mystery. So there's uses like that, and there are also purely educational uses. Various students have books that are downloaded onto their iPad so they can have a more interactive experience with their textbooks, even have it read to them through the iPad. And for now, I bid you adieu. Thank you very much. Who's next? What's up? Oops, didn't mean to do that.
Eddie, what happened?
It's all my fault.
Right corner play button.
Did I hit it?
Eddie.
I'm touching it pretty good right now.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, there I am. Thanks, Sam.
All right.
At one of our first lectures, when they were talking about who was actually going to make something like this happen on a college campus, one of our presenters said to coordinators like Wendy, executive directors, you have to find someone who's a little bit crazy. That was me, okay? Apparently I fit the job description. I want to talk to you a little bit today about the philosophy of the peer-to-peer project. Somebody asked a great question. How is this different from Best Buddies, or how is this different from mentoring? I had traveled around to many different college campuses, and I kept hearing about this mentoring relationship between traditionally enrolled students and the non-traditionally enrolled students who had IDD. Something about that bothered me. When I think mentor, I think of someone who is 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into a field, helping a young person figure out what it is that they want to do and learn the skills you don't learn in textbooks. I don't think about peers in that way. So I said, we've got to work, first of all, on the language. So as we got started, excuse me, went a little too far, I decided we first needed to change the name of the relationship. And I said, okay, we're going to refer to all of the students as partners, as peer partners, because age-wise they were in kind of the same cohort. And partnership means that both sides are going to get something out of the relationship. We had a lot of students who become, traditionally enrolled students, who become peer partners because they have to fulfill a field requirement for an education course. That's that student's goal. They need to spend some time interacting with someone who has an intellectual developmental disability. For the non-traditionally enrolled partners, they were looking to become more included in campus. Fine, we set up a partnership, we set up an arrangement, and the students help each other meet those goals. And the traditionally enrolled students would not take a mentoring, and most importantly, not a charitable role. They weren't doing a, oh, look at me, this is a really good thing. This is an opportunity to have real diversity on campus. Not just racial diversity, not just gender diversity, not just diversity in sexual orientation and background, but also true diversity in terms of intellect, in terms of ways of perceiving the world, different intellectual gifts and challenges, and that's very important on a campus as well. So we had to give students power right away. Both the traditionally enrolled and the non-traditionally enrolled partners, they are all partners, needed to apply to become a peer partner. It wasn't something where we were going to say to one group of students, you're going to get partners and they're going to help you on campus. It had to be completely voluntary. And we did have some students who, in the course of applying, said, I'm real interested in the iPad, but I'm satisfied with my social interactions. I have enough friends, thanks. Some people said, oh, you know, I'm really into the whole getting to know people, but I already have an iPad. Very few people said no to the iPad. I do have to be honest about that. But people had to choose to become part of this. We also trained all of the partners together. All of the trainings were fully inclusive. We weren't going to say one thing to one group and not say it to another group. We offered the opportunity as well to traditionally enrolled students from any discipline. Previously, we'd gone to the school of social work or the school of education. Now we have students coming in from management. We stole Eddie from management. We've had a number of wonderful partners come from visual and performing arts. We had a partner apply from the School of Engineering, because we weren't saying, well, you know, disability only applies in one area. We're everywhere. We're in every discipline. So we want to welcome students who have all of those backgrounds, plus the non-traditionally enrolled peers had a lot of interests. And, you know, maybe they didn't, maybe you were really into talking about education and making what are they, bulletin boards, but somebody else may have really wanted to talk about sports. Why don't we introduce you to somebody who has an interest in sports? Okay, yeah, I think I said all of those things. All right, here was the other thing. We needed to really introduce the elephant in the living room. Hence the picture behind me of the elephant sitting in the living room. People were really concerned initially that we would talk about disability. Syracuse University, however, has a very long and very proud tradition of speaking about disability honestly, looking at how the experience of disability impacts throughout academic disciplines, and we needed to talk about it because disability is a difference, and it's too long been a negative stigma. We said, nope, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to talk disability. So these were the three big ideas that we worked with in training and that we reinforce when we're working with all partners. Disability is not a dirty word. We practiced a little bit in terms of disclosure. I disclosed my own disability during the course of the trainings to basically show students this really isn't something to be scared of. You can ask for what you need. Also, some of our traditionally enrolled peer partners also have a disability identity. So it wasn't non-disabled and disabled. It was traditionally enrolled, not traditionally enrolled. The second idea is that we all need and use natural supports. We had, as I was coming in from my car today, very nice young lady held the door open because my arms were completely full. She didn't have to be trained. She didn't have to be hired to do that. That's just what people do to help each other out. When I was learning how to use my cell phone, it was my 13-year-old son, he was 13 at the time, who taught me how to text. And he taught his father, which was really, that was really hard. And the other idea that we needed to work with is that culture changes through relationships. We know that people with disabilities can be very marginalized in this society. Those things will change when people have a vested interest. So we had policy studies students come in to learn about disability. And then when they looked at a policy later on that impacted people who had a disability, they said, oh, wait, that's not a nameless, faceless group. That's my friend so-and-so. That's the student who is in my class. Those are the people that I grew up with. And that it was very important to make those connections. So we operate very much from a disability studies, a disability culture, and a disability pride model. One of our big events this year that was coordinated through the Disability Student Union was Orange Ability, where athletes with disabilities and athletes without disabilities talked about accessible sports, and students got a chance to try out racing wheelchairs. What else did people have? Basketball.
Hockey.
Wheelchair hockey.
Soccer.
Oh, and Quidditch. They also had Quidditch. And we very much operate from we're different, but we're not less. And the disability, living with a disability can be a very creative way to live, and it shouldn't be hidden, and it shouldn't be anything that anyone should be ashamed about. And we also learned we really need to listen. We really need to listen to students. That we needed to let the undergraduate students, traditionally or non-traditionally enrolled, tell us what it was like to be a typical college student and guide us. We needed to kind of step out of our role as professionals and say, well, okay, Micah, Jasmine, Jordan, how would you guys do this? How would you handle this sort of situation? And go with them. We needed to listen to what our students wanted. And how did all of the students want the project to expand? And what was our role as support staff supposed to be? I frequently say that I just sort of show up and pay for things or give official permission. But the direct support staff, I think, learned a lot about where to let go, where to provide guidance, and they served in the mentoring role for their students much more on a day-to-day basis than the official program staff did. So this has been fun. We've learned an awful lot. And I will hand off now to our technology gurus, Rachel Zubu-Ruggieri, our administrative and technical specialist, and Eddie Zaremba, who is a graduate assistant for development and marketing. Eddie will be better at this because this is his iPad.
Actually, I stole the idea from Rachel, who had started doing this iPad presentation stuff before I had. And I guess that leads us to a question. So, in whichever way you'd like to express yourself, whether it be raising a hand or making a noise or whatever have you, who uses technology in the room? Who? Or not? Cool. That's just about everybody. And we're talking about, we have smartphones, tablets, computers, Alpha Sparks, all kinds of different technologies, or maybe you go home and watch TV. We really thought, with this project, we know it's important, and especially the ways that we all engage with technology. And so I guess that leads to a second question. What does this have to do with what we're doing here? And the answer is nothing. Sometimes we engage with things that aren't necessarily the best way forward to do what we're doing. So when we started with these iPads, I don't want to knock it because I wasn't a part of the program at the time, but we had this thing called user groups. And so we gave out iPads, students had iPads, and people got together in these things called user groups. And from everything that I've heard, they didn't go so well. So they went away. And that's what led us to create that. We have Geek Out sessions now. This is a poster from one of the sessions we had earlier this year. We call it a Geek Out, which is kind of, reclaiming this term of geek because everyone's kind of a geek, with their technology. We held it in a space that's very, very inclusive. It's like a ring of couches with like a projector. We hooked up iPads to it, so whoever came in with an iPad was able to plug in and just get engaged. And we do it at different times throughout the semester, usually towards the end of the semester when students are available.
Okay, one of the things we did is we surveyed, we sent a little survey out to students and people involved in the project to find out what kind of things do you want to learn about your iPad, accessibility, note-taking apps, etc. And so after that, we got together and found some apps to try out. And as Eddie said, this was a very good space because we were able to plug in the iPad and play with it. There were also a bank of iPads against the wall, so support staff could check them out as well. And we could all just interact together.
It was fun.
It was fun. It was
Yeah.
fun. Come in.
Go. There we are. Stay.
All right. Like here's a screenshot of an iPad, and up here in the corner is, I believe, is that the phone?
Mhm.
I should know by now.
Yeah.
An app. This is like a simple app to help you find your iPad if you lose it or have it stolen. And you can see that very well. Now, what's
So
that
you
one?
want to explain it?
What's that one?
Yeah. Did the-
Oh, that's Micah.
Just kidding, Micah. Do you want me to? That's telling me.
Yeah, you do.
So, so we have all these different apps, and this shows a basic screen on what, an iPad, which our students, which actually most of us have. The top app there, like Rachel was saying, is Find My iPad. And if you don't have that on, please take a moment after this presentation and turn that on now, because if someone decides to make your iPad their iPad, you can get your iPad back in your hands faster than they even know it's happening. You can lock your iPad, you can delete all the stuff on your iPad, and it's connected through a free service that Apple provides. You can log in through a computer and do all those things. And if you have an iPhone or a Mac, it works the same. Also, this here was a fun app. It's called Telegami. And one of the things that we've also done this year is continue to develop how we're looking at technology and who we're including in the conversation. We've worked with professors in the School of Education, but we've also worked with people who are outside consultants. We had a presentation like this with Lori Cooney, who came to us from Boston and shared with us this app called Telegami. You create an avatar. So here's, there's different shades of skin tone, there's different colors, there's different backgrounds you can pick. So this guy here looks like he's hanging out in the mountains, but if you wanted to be on the beach, you could do that too. You type something in, choose a voice which has multiple culturally relevant voices, and it can say things. So other than the fact that it's really funny to make an animated character say whatever you want, you can take this, send it to your friend, and use it as a way of communication if you're not so comfortable speaking or signing or calling or texting. And that was one of the recommended things. And so we continue to evaluate different things and to share different things. And with the Geek Out sessions, we pick different technologies that seem relevant, whether it's email and communication, Blackboard, access apps, because most of us do have disabilities or disability identities. And there's different things that iPads can do to make the iPad easier for you to use. Maybe it's making the text bigger, which is something I enjoy. Or maybe it's using enabling dictation, which a lot of people like because they don't have to type into the thing, and they don't have to have the same mode of accessing writing and sending messages.
And just the last thing that we really liked about these Geek Out sessions is that some of the students and partners, they had apps we never heard of, and said, well, I really like this one, and you're like, oh, it's like a real, real partnership. So,
Yeah,
anything
we
else?
plug it in and
Yep.
everybody take turns.
Right. Are you ready,
So? Mr. Mike?
Mr. Micah.
Yeah, and I just go
Just go like
that way?
Yep. Just whenever you do. There you go. Oops.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Awesome.
Oh, sure.
And then just speak right into the microphone
Yeah.
so the card can
Okay. Okay, here's me at my school in Michigan at Oakland University, and had great peer trainers. What I liked having peer trainer because they were my age. They were in college. They helped me about learn about Facebook. They got me involved in other groups on the college campus. And what I did with my peer trainers, they were my teachers, and we learned a lot together. Why it's good to have peers is they are friendly, outgoing. They help you, and they help you about learn about things and stuff. And what I do as a peer trainer here on the campus is we speak in classes. we post flyers around the campus. We post. We speak at student groups, and we post things around the this around the college campus. And then sometimes we just have fun. We talk and just have a fun time together. And here's Jasmine.
Good morning, everybody. Like Micah said, a lot of what we do is recruitment and hanging out with peers and just talking, because who doesn't want to do that? But I'm here to talk a little bit more about the logistics of how we operate. Oh, I went backwards. Okay.
You have to give it just a second. There you go.
Okay, so what happens after Micah does all this awesome recruiting and we have all these students who are interested in joining peer-to-peer is that they fill out an application, as Dee said. And this application is asking them a lot of questions about why they want to join peer-to-peer, what parts of peer-to-peer they might be interested in, what are their hobbies, what are things that they like, what are some things they don't like to do. For example, I know I'm a reader, but if you want to go to the gym, I'm probably not the best person. So I put that just to let people know who I might be partnered with that that's not really something I'm interested in. And then after the application process, we do a training. And as Dee already talked about, our training really goes to tackle the issue that disability is something to be prideful about. And in a way, we all have a disability or something that we need supports and mechanisms to help us with, and that's nothing to be shameful about or fearful of. And as a partner, it is really a two-way relationship. And you learn so much from your peer about different things you didn't imagine that you would even learn about. I was just in a conversation on a driving exam yesterday, and that was something that I struggled with. And to hear his process through getting a permit and possibly going to range and learning how to drive was something that I didn't even think about. Might also have been a struggle for someone else, because I remember when I learned how to drive, everyone was like, it's so easy to do, and it was something that really took a lot for me to get comfortable with on that. So the third step, again, is looking at those interests and those hobbies and really trying to make peers connect on things that they enjoy to do, so that they can build those meaningful relationships and hang out at the Starbucks if that's what they like to do all day, or go to the gym and work out for 5 hours if that's what they like to do, or sit in a room and watch a movie. So we really want to make sure that the peers have those common interests so that the friendship can go and form. And then lastly, we let them meet, see how it goes. You meet new people every day, and sometimes despite the interest that you have, it may work, and then sometimes it may not. So let's try it, let's give it a hand, let's go, and let's experience. And so then after that, as peer trainers, we find ways to support the development of a friendship. And we realize that the best way to do that is communication. And we had to sit back and think, well, how do we